Okay, so the next to discuss would be a quantitative data. Again, a quantitative data is when numbers are involved, or it would be a numerical data. So as you can see, the one on the yellow, those are numbers, random numbers. And what we're going to do is a frequency distribution table for a group data. Now again, my argument, my always argument why we're using this is because we're using Excel to make it easier, and at the same time, if our data is a million or 1,000, we will still do the same. All right. So, in addition, if this problem, this problem that you can see, you can also do it manually if you want, because both manually or using Excel, we can do a frequency distribution table. But again, what we're going to do is Excel. So, in our data, as you can see, this is our data, and these are the things that we will solve. So as I go to the heading, so I'm going to discuss what are those. All right. So first off would be HV and LV. All right. HV is called highest value, and LV is called lowest value. And in determining the highest value and lowest value in our data, when done manually, then you're just going to look for it. But when done in Excel, again, please do not forget in Excel, we always start with an equal sign. And the function that we're going to use is called max. So as you can see, after typing the word max, there are a lot of functions still that you could use with max, but what we're going to use is just max. And we select our data. After pressing enter, you would observe here that Excel would already give you the highest value. Similarly, for the lowest value, all we need to do is equals min. So if we have max, we have min, and we press enter. So you would observe here that Excel already gave you the highest and the lowest value, which is in array to our data. So as I have discussed, if it would be an array, so if you had a mistake in encoding your data, for example, this 195 should be 145, you would observe that the values of your highest and lowest value would also change depending on your data. All right. So there's also a reason why this is the hierarchy of what we're going to do, because after determining your highest and lowest value, the next that we can solve is the range. And the range, the formula of our range would be highest minus the lowest value. So you would observe that everything that we're going to do is an array. So if there would be a mistake in our data, then everything would change. Now for n, again, as I have discussed in the qualitative data, n is the total number of your data. So what we're going to use is just equals count. We're not going to use count A because count A was used if we just want to determine the cells that are not blank. That's for that's when letters are involved. So here is those are numbers. So all we need to do is to type the word count. We select our data, and Excel would give us how many is our data. Now next would be K and I. K is called class interval and I is called class width. So what's the difference of K and I? K, since we are doing group data, K would give us an idea how many groups are there for our data or for this frequency distribution table. And I would give you the class width. All right. So again, I repeat, K is the number of groups, I is the width between or starting from LCI up until UCI. All right. So for K, the formula of K is 1 plus 3.33 multiplied to the logarithm of n. There. So again, the formula of this is 1 plus 3.33 times logarithm of your n. And again, you would observe that the value is 6.33. So Again, as I have mentioned a while ago, K would give us an idea how many groups are there in our table. Now, so since K is 6.33, we are sure that there are more than six groups. But we cannot just say that there are six and one third group. Instead, we are going to round it up. Okay. Once you type the word round, there are other functions for round, but what we're going to use is round up. We're going to round up this value to zero. So that number of digits, this zero, if I'm going to round it up, the value zero for the number digits mean that you're going to round it up to the next whole number. Now, if you want to see, let's say it's 2, then the round up value, this number would be rounded up on the second decimal place. So that's the use of the number digits. Then therefore, since our k roundup is 7, then there would be 7 groups. All right. Now for the class width, that would be r divided by the roundup k. You would observe it would be 4.85. Again, we're going to round it up, similar to what we have done on k. So that would be rounded up to the next whole number. So it means that there are 7 groups, and the class width starting from LCI up to UCI, there should be 5. Now, in making our table, the first number in the first group, let us say it would be 1. For example, it would be 1. So if it would be 1, then what should be the upper? So LCI would be the lower class interval, UCI is the upper class interval. All right, so for the upper, since there are 5 class width, then if I'm going to count it, starting from LCI, so that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this should be the upper class interval should be 5. So if I'm going to continue the counting, so the next number after 5 would be 6, so this would be 10, 11. Okay, so I'm going to do it first. 21, 26, 31. All right. So if I'm going to start at 1, you would observe here that after adding the class width of 5, the numbers would be up until 35. So there are 7 groups, class width of 5. So this would now be the class intervals of my groups. But if this would be my LCI, UCI, last UCI, or this would be my groups, this value or our data would not be counted or will not be included in the frequency per group. Why? Because the lowest value of my data is 95. And this numbers is much lower than 95. Then therefore, this numbers is not present in our data. So, we cannot use 1 as the starting LCI. Now, we will also not use a random number for this LCI of the first group. Instead, for us to be assured that all of our data, all of this, would be counted, therefore, we start with 95. All right? We start with the lowest value. And again, how are we going to copy this 95? Please do remember that if we're going to copy paste in Excel, what we're copying is the formula. All right? So as you can see, what I did, Control C, Control V, and you would observe here that the formula was copied, the minimum. All right? But what we want is the value 95. So what are we going to do to copy the 95? So instead of encoding 95, all right, instead of encoding, what we're going to do is we're going to press equal sign and select 95. Why? Again, because it would be in array. So if this would be changed, everything would be changed. All right, so 95. So if my lowest class interval is 95, then I'm assured that the lowest number would be counted. But how am I going to be sure that all of this 40 would be included in the frequencies of the 7 groups? All right. So the easiest answer is that since the lowest value is there, the highest value should also be in one of these groups. Since the highest and the lowest is in these 7 groups, then therefore all the numbers in between would be accounted for, right? So if we're going to continue doing the 7 groups, this 129 should be one of the or in the groups either on the last or okay. So if I'm going to determine the UCI, for example, I'm going to add the LCI with I because that's the class width. The answer would be 100, but that's wrong. Why? Because if we're going to count starting from 95, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, then therefore this UCI should be 99. So why is it that it became 100? So it became 100 because once we added this 5 to 95, 95 is not included in the group. So to fix it, I'm going to add a -1. This is just applicable for the first group. Okay? I'm going to include -1 because this -1, 95 should be included in the first group. Now, for the second group, it would just be the previous interval plus I. So that would be our formula again and again. So the previous interval plus I. Similarly, for the upper class interval, that would be the previous plus I, the previous plus I. Now, since the formula would be the same for the next groups, which would be the previous interval plus I, might as well we just put a dollar sign. Again, how to put a dollar sign? All you need to do would be to press F4. So to put a dollar sign on I, right? Because if I'm going to copy paste it, again, the previous interval plus I, the previous plus I, the previous plus I. All right, similar to the upper class interval, that would be the previous plus I, previous plus I. Now, as I have said a while ago, for us to be sure or assured that everything would be accounted, the lowest and the highest should be present in your groups. And as you can see, both of them are there. It's not necessary that the last group should end at the highest value. What's important is that the highest value is in the groups for us to be assured that everything would be counted. Now, for the lower class boundaries and upper class boundaries, again, the formula there is just subtracting zero point 0.5 to the lower, all right? Subtracting zero point 0.5 to the lower and adding zero point 0.5 to the upper. So that's it. All right? So subtracting zero point 0.5 and adding zero point 0.5. So what's the reason? If you're going to observe in the class intervals, the decimal numbers are not present, meaning 99.1 up until 99.999 is not present, and these boundaries would fix it. All right? Okay, next would be the class mark. Class mark is also called the class midpoint, meaning per group there would be a middle. All right? What is that value? That is your class mark. And to get that, all we need to do is to get the average of the lowest and upper class interval. So that would be adding them both and dividing it by 2. Now, this 97 is in the middle of your 95 to 99, right? Why? Since there are 5 numbers On my first group, 95, 96, 97, 98, and 99, the middle of those five numbers is your class mark, which is 97. All right? Now, in solving for your class mark, please do not forget that Excel follows PEMDAS rule. So this grouping symbols parenthesis is very important in solving for your class mark. All right? So we drag it down. All right. Next would be the frequency. Again, we're already going to count how many 95s to 99s are there. All right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to do what we've done in the qualitative variable. So what is that? So since I'm going to count how many 95s up to 129 are there, so on this column M and N, on column M, I'm going to start with the lowest value, 95. And then I'm going to do increments of 1, meaning adding 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So I'm going to drag this down up until I reach 129. So what did I do? So I've listed on column M all the numbers that would be possible for my data because my data's lowest value is 95 and the highest is 129. So this 95 to 129 are the possible values of my data. On column M, again, as I have said, we are going to do what we've done in the qualitative. So we're going to count how many 95s are there in your range with the criteria of M1. All right. Again, we're going to put a dollar sign. We're going to put a dollar sign for our range. So the reason why we place this dollar sign on my range so that this blue or our range would not move once we copy and paste. Now, after copy pasting, these values on N would give us an idea how many 95 are there in your data, how many 96, how many 97, and so on and so forth. Now, in the frequency, again, as I have discussed in the qualitative, the frequency would be the number, okay, would be the number in your data that's in this group, which is 95 to 99. So what are we going to do? So on 95 to 99 here, yeah, 95 to 99, what I'm going to do on the first frequency would be to get the sum of these five numbers. If I'm going to get the sum of those five numbers, isn't it? This would be the frequency of my first group. All right. So what I'm going to do would be to follow my group. So 100 to 104. And then this would be the next group is 100 to 109, 110 to 114. So I'm going to do alternate fills. All right. I'm going to do alternate fills because you can also not do this if you want. The reason why I placed that so that it would be much easier because we cannot copy paste. It would be much easier to select so that we can finish our frequency. Right, so we're already on 115 to 109. So we get the sum, right? 120 to 124, and then 125 to 129. All right, so this would be the frequency of our data. Again, how are we sure that it's correct? We get the sum of our frequency, and the sum of our frequency should be equivalent to our n. If it would be equivalent to our n, then therefore it's all our data was accounted for. All right. Now for the tally again, it would be similar to quali, so that would be the repetition again of any letter you like, depending on the value of my frequency, right? So that's repetition. So we're going to copy paste. So we're going to do first RF. So for RF, all we need to do, RF is similar to the percent that we've done in quali. So that would be the frequency divided by n. So it's similar. So again, we press F4 for n there. And then we just get the sum. Again, if we get the sum of this should be equivalent to 1. For the percent, all we need to do for the percent is to multiply it to 100 because it would be percent. Now, if you don't like to do this, you can also just select the numbers here, just like in the quali, wherein we press this percent, right? And then we move the decimal numbers. So that would be your choice. All right. All right. So lastly would be the increasing cumulative frequency and decreasing cumulative frequency. So from the word cumulative, it would be adding, or subtracting, depending on if it would be ascending or descending. So how will it be if it would be ascending? So for ascending cumulative frequencies, we start at 4, right? And then since it is increasing, so what we're going to do, the cumulative is to add the next frequency, right? So the previous plus the next frequency again and again, all right? And then for the decreasing, we start with n and then we subtract, all right? We subtract and then we copy paste, all right? Now, the last that we're going to do here is to graph it. And how are we going to graph it? All right. You can go to insert if you want. So what we're going to graph are three: histogram, frequency, polygon, and all give. You can go to insert here and pick your charts. For histogram, what I'm going to do, I can also select this, right click, and quick analysis. And then I go to charts here to go to the clustered column. So this is histogram. All right. So histogram would give you the frequency versus the class mark versus the frequency. Now we're also going to do a frequency polygon. So right click, quick analysis, and that would be line. All right. So this is your frequency polygon. Your frequency polygon and your histogram are the same. If you're going to observe, they are the same. The only difference is that the graph for a frequency polygon is a line graph, and the graph for a histogram is a column graph or a bar graph. Now the last would be called an all give. For the all give, what we're going to do is we're going to insert another column here, which is CM, because okay, we're going to copy this CM again to copy equal sign, and then you select the cell that you want to copy. The reason why I'm going to insert CM near CF because I can only use the quick analysis if the columns are beside each other. All right, so quick analysis, charts, and then line. So you would observe here the cumulative frequency that would give you is an idea on how your data would rise and fall. All right, so there. So after which you can already hide this since it's already not needed because you already have a graph for your OGIF. Okay, so this ends the lecture about frequency distribution table for both quality and quantitative data.